Next up, we have co-founder of Food Not Bombs, Keith McHenry, who came out here to bring us pastries and feed us. And he's going to talk about impacts of that he's had with his experience with incarceration and connect that to the militarization of the police, and then some.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks. So as you may have heard, volunteers with Food Not Bombs have been arrested many times, and over 1,000 times in San Francisco. There are arrests here in Santa Cruz for feeding people. Before Food Not Bombs was called Food Not Bombs in Santa Cruz. There's currently people are facing arrest in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and Orlando, Florida. There's roughly 71 cities in America that have made it illegal to feed the hungry or to limit the ability to feed the hungry. So in my case, I've been jailed over 100 times and spent over 2 years in jail total, about 2 years of that just for feeding the hungry. I was the first white person to face the California 3 strikes law, getting all 3 charges by May 15th of the year that the 3 strikes law came into being. In the 2 years that I was in jail in San Francisco, I had a number of things happen. One was bus therapy. So if you talk to people in California, they have a thing called bus therapy because of jail overcrowding. It's considered cruel and unusual punishment to have so many prisoners in prison. And so in the 80s and 90s, what they would do is they would take you out of jail before count, and they would bring you back to another jail somewhere else in the system after count. And they'd have hundreds and hundreds of prisoners in buses, chains of buses going around. And you got to have a full cavity search 10 to 12 times a day, before and after every meal. And before you went to sleep in a hallway in some jail, or before you got back on the bus in the morning after they gave you like a carton of milk or something. And so also, oddly enough, in California prison system and in county jails, they have this thing called the stress position cage. And the most famous one is the Pelican Bay stress position cage, where it's like a little skinny phone booth, and they wheel you out in your underwear into the yard, and you can't bend your knees, and you have to stand for several days out in the cold. That's the one that most people know of. But they also have the kind that they use at Bagram Air Base and Abu Ghraib, and they used in Vietnam, that's featured in Naomi Klein's Shock Doctrine, which is a small little cage that hangs from the ceiling. And that's what happened to me, where they would grab you, they take off the streets, they take you to an unknown location, which I later found out was police headquarters, and they rip your clothes off, they lift you by your arms and legs until your ligaments and tendons are ripped, and then they put you in this little tiny cage where you can't stretch your legs out for several days. They did that to me 3 times, and I assume they did this to gang members and other people, although I never actually met anybody that was in the one in San Francisco in room 136. But this is something that I learned was happening to people like in Turkey and other countries as well. And I was at the vet cooking one day, and he said he was responsible for doing that to Afghanis, and he's the one that told me the name of the cage called the stress position cage. So I don't know if they have that here, but they do have it in a number of places in the United States, and many places like Bagram, and they use millions of people in the United States. We have one of the largest prison populations, if not the largest prison population in the world. At one point, it was like 1 in 2 prisoners were jailed in the United States. I think, sadly enough, more people are starting to jail people in other countries, so our numbers are a little not so skewed, but we still have the largest prison population. But that's connected also to the stuff that you might have heard about from Edward Snowden and the whole surveillance state that's going on. They're not one subject and then another subject. It's all part of the police state. And then the other thing that's happening is all these like quality of life laws. When I was in jail in Florida, the guy next to me was being jailed because he happened to be standing next to the exit of a parking garage during a very severe thunderstorm. And he ran into the parking garage to keep from being wet. It was downtown Orlando, Florida. Nobody was in that parking garage. No one was in the little booth collecting money, but it's against the law to be near a booth where someone collects money unless you have enough money in your pocket to prove that you could actually pay somebody money in that booth, even though no one was there. and he had been jailed for this many times. I was stopped in Orlando, Florida, for for having more than 1/3 of my body parallel to the earth. That's actual crime in many cities. Here you have sleeping bans that are enforced, and you just have the stay away order that the city just passed. So you have, that's going to mean more homeless people, more poor people going to jail, risking their health at our local jail. And finally, connected to all of that is the fact that the city of Santa Cruz is supposed to be getting, or has agreed to accept a $250,000 tank for the police department. And so we just found out this week that the sheriff's department apparently already has 2 tanks in town. So why do we need another one? Scotts Valley has one. And the police are saying, oh, well, they desperately need one because they have to get one from Santa Clara County. Well, it turns out that was untrue. And the only time that they suggested that they might go borrow one was for the occupation on River Street. So they won't agree that they won't use them against protesters. So we have this very important protest that we need everyone to come out to on Tuesday at 4:30. And it's really important that we resist the militarization. They have like license plate reader cameras. They're coming up with all kinds of militarized things. And obviously, if they come out with a tank and start grabbing people, they're going to put us in the jail where you be neglected and you may be risking your life. So I encourage people to come out this Tuesday to resist the militarization of the Santa Cruz Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Yeah, please come out on Tuesday. We'll be there, and the room was packed last time. Let's do that again.